Who's speaking?
House resumes. House resumes and debate continues. But let me just, Senator, Honorable Minister, let me just comment on something quickly, not for long. Yes, we had a little debate on some matters earlier in regards to when the Senator Sanford was on her feet and the Honorable Minister Frederick interjected or interrupted. I'm of the view that the first standing order that I quoted was correct. However, to strengthen the standing order, I've looked at a separate standing order, which is 43B, but I'm going to read it, but I still think I made an error by not allowing the minister to deliberate immediately while the senator was on her feet. So moving forward in a matter in that respect, what we'll do if a minister is going to interrupt on a point of clarification, or not necessarily a minister, but any member, will do it immediately, and then we will proceed. Because I agree with the opposition that we don't want it to be a debate back and forth. And that was not my intention, but I agree with the opposition on that matter. I'll just refer to it again and agree that moving forward, it would have been better if the minister had actually spoken or clarified while the senator was on her feet. That is, if she yielded, which she did. So let me just read it, and then that is my conclusion. 41.5 says, a member who has spoken on a question may, with the speaker's permission, again be heard to offer explanation on some material part of his speech, which he claims has been misrepresented, but he shall not introduce new matter. He must offer the explanation immediately at the conclusion of the speech which calls for it. Again, when the Honorable Minister tried to move in a different direction to bring other debate matters, you would agree that I stopped him and tell him he cannot entertain any other matter. On 43B, 43B says, no member shall interrupt another member except, so again, the rules agrees or anticipate that there might be a situation where somebody wants to intervene or interrupt. So the rules allow for it, but with an exception. And the exception is that it gives A, that is rising on a point of order, which we are all clear on that. Normally that's what happens. But on B, B is what I want to point out. B, to elucidate some matter raised, and elucidate means to make something clear, to explain. Elucidate some matter raised by that member in the course of his speech, if the member speaking is willing to give way and resume his seat, and the member wishing to interrupt is called upon by the speaker or the chairman. In that regard, two things happened. One, the minister did stand on his feet. I did call on him, and the senator did allow him to come to speak. In some jurisdiction and some debates I've seen, sometimes members refuse to allow someone to interrupt them. But that's the member who is debating right. So I think in regards to the standing order, it is clear that yes, any member can interrupt with exceptions to clarify and to correct. But as I said, I think it's an error in actually making him do it after. He should have done it immediately while he came on his feet, so that the senator could complete, and if she won't, be able to counteract or suggest a different angle. So that's the ruling. The ruling was correct, but the approach, I think, had a little error in it. So let's proceed. Senator, the Honorable Minister, Kasani Laville.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the supplementary appropriation. And it is certainly a tall order to follow the likes of Senator Maslin and Senator Annette Sanford, who started quite calmly and immediately, in usual fashion, segued into an abysmal pit. And Senator Maslin, who uses the opportunity to present to the public and to debate on substantive issues, instead to be flamboyant, and as he called it, to say things and to jump around. Parliament is serious business. And while I am in no position, I'm not qualified to advise you, but I tend to see the both of you as my peers, my colleagues. We are new in this, and I expect better from you to represent our generation in a much better fashion. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, on this side, my colleagues did a fantastic job. As always, not only in explaining, but justifying the need to spend $275 million. An investment, truly. Unfortunately, however, there were quite a bit of accusations. And I need to clarify some of these, Mr. Speaker. In many cases, we saw some of the representatives imputing improper motives, misrepresenting many issues, and altering the facts. Mr. Speaker, on the point of electricity, we heard the MP for Roseau North suggesting that $5.4 million was associated with the official residence of the Prime Minister. And Mr. Speaker, this is so far from the truth. I mean, Mr. Speaker, if you don't understand what is submitted to you, simply admit you don't understand. But to twist the facts, manipulate the truth, and to suggest otherwise is completely unacceptable in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this fiscal year, we budgeted $3.67 million less than the last fiscal period for consumption of electricity. And we did so strategically in an effort to do our best in difficult economic times to save money as much as possible. But what we saw, on the other hand, was increase in consumption by, on average, over $100,000 per month. And of course, Mr. Speaker, fate would have it, we can see clearly that we have many more government facilities operational now. We see that health and wellness centers have been commissioned and they are being used, Mr. Speaker. We are seeing in many cases that 24-hour care is administered in health facilities outside of Dominica China Friendship Hospital, Mr. Speaker. So this is clear justification of the $100,000 monthly increase that we are now paying. Mr. Speaker, when a parliamentarian suggests that $5.4 million is associated with his fixation on the official residence of the Prime Minister, this is unacceptable, and there's no place for this in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. When in fact, Mr. Speaker, the consumption associated with the official residence of the Prime Minister represents merely 0.22% of the monthly consumption cost for electricity. Mr. Speaker, there is talk of negative growth in our economy. Just in the water sector alone, Mr. Speaker, this negative growth that Senator Sanford suggested, that has been ongoing from, I would imagine, since 2000, because she boasted the period of the Great Depression from 1995 to 1999, the two-partyism that they called it. She celebrated that period like some type of success, Mr. Speaker, and spoke of our time period as negative growth, Mr. Speaker. That is what I heard. I was here. I sat behind her, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sanford is on a point of order. So which point of order? I'm not hearing what you are saying, you know. Please stop. Do you want
Mr.
to yield?
Speaker,
So
I never said depression. She said negative growth. That's what she said. Negative growth.
you see, I said earlier that if it is if you come in on a particular standing order, then it's okay. But if you want to point a clarification, whoever is on their feet would have to agree to yield. That's why I said I think that was erroneous. You understand? So, Minister, you can proceed if you want to remain on your feet. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, let's be honest in this House. We speak of negative growth, Mr. Speaker, in the water sector alone. We recall that in 2015, near 100%, I believe it's about 98.5% of consumers in Dominica had access to potable water in 2015, Mr. Speaker. And after the passage of Tropical Storm Erica in that very year, 30% of the water sector was damaged, amounting to $52.5 million. Mr. Speaker, how can we forget that and look at development in a silo? Mr. Speaker, soon after, government invested in that water sector. 2 years later, here comes Hurricane Maria in 2017, after having reached 95% coverage again, damaging 45% of our water sector, amounting this time to $104 million, Mr. Speaker. How can we look at our sustainable development in a bubble, Mr. Speaker, Am I in the same Dominica as the parliamentarians on this side, Mr. Speaker? How do we look at things? Mr. Speaker, we speak of, well, they speak of this negative growth. When we recall Tropical Storm Erica, we think of our GDP being affected by over 90%. No sooner, Hurricane Maria again, affecting our GDP by 226%. So in a matter of 2 years, Mr. Speaker, our GDP was negatively affected by over 300%. And look at us today, Mr. Speaker. How many countries would have been able to rebound and find its footing after 2 tragic, devastating events like this? Show me a country. Show me another one. Mr. Speaker, what we also see is that some of the parliamentarians on this side have now fostered a new habit of attacking public officers. Not saying public officers this time, but the technicians in the ministry, trying to be crafty. Technicians in the ministry. And speaking of their inability to budget and to plan, and to even suggest and impute improper motive by suggesting that they are hiding. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we stand in complete and total support of the public officers, the hard-working public officers in this service. Mr. Speaker, I recall going to school, doing math very early on, and teacher would say 2 + 2 = 4. And if I don't understand it, I raise my hand. Miss, could you explain it again, please? 2 + 2 is 4. If I don't understand it, Senator John Finn, what do I do? I should kindly put up my hand again, Mr. Speaker, and ask for another explanation. Instead, what we do is say in the House that they're hiding, we're hiding. Should I then in turn accuse the teacher of hiding the right answer for me when really I am the one guilty of not understanding? Mr. Speaker, this is what we are faced with. This is what we have been confronted with. Misunderstanding and misrepresentation of the truth and of the facts. Mr. Speaker, we saw in Senator John Finn's presentation that her first attack, her very first utterances, Mr. Speaker, was to attack the health sector. Can you believe that? Am I in the right place, Mr. Speaker? Out of the $275 million investment, I call it, strategic investment, 76 million of that is for the health sector. And we attack it. We don't support it. Every country, every responsible country in the world right now, squarely focused on health security. And we are proving time and time again, Mr. Speaker, that we are committed to the health sector and the security of healthcare of the people of Dominica. And not even on that point we can get support here today, Mr. Speaker. For money spent, 76 million already spent. What should we have done? What would be their advice, Mr. Speaker? To ask the doctors and nurses and orderlies to return the $76 million? Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you saw Senator Masler come in with his flamboyance and bravado and speaking of matters of NEP, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before we talk about things, we must find out about it, we must know it. And I am suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that sometimes we must not get fooled and carried away by our attire that we wear in this house and think that this is the reality of everybody, Mr. Speaker. He should turn down his glass one day and salute the NEP workers and tell them, thank you very much for keeping our island clean and green, Mr. Speaker. They speak to nothing on our path to creating employment, Mr. Speaker. We are doing nothing for employment, Mr. Speaker. The vegetation management, Mr. Speaker, and there's a line item in here for vegetation management, for asphalt patching, Mr. Speaker. This in itself has created 438 direct employment opportunities for our people, Mr. Speaker. And we are not creating jobs, Mr. Speaker. It's a start. In difficult times, Mr. Speaker, they're suggesting we are not focusing on economic drivers. In a time when we are investing over $75 million in digital transformation, next year we're investing over $11 million just for that year, Mr. Speaker. I mean, come on. In the past year, we have trained over 120 young professionals, aged 18 to 40, 12-week program. 20 hours a week, Mr. Speaker, to access jobs, not just here in Dominica. We are not just focusing on jobs and revenue locally, but to access the wider global market, Mr. Speaker. So after that training, we have facilitated gigs for most of these 120 young people, Mr. Speaker. And you would have heard that the Prime Minister at his independence address would have spoken about one young lady who earns in excess of $800 a week, $2,100 a week, Mr. Speaker, $8,400 a month. With the time that you all have on your hands, you all should probably sign up for the Work Online Dominica. The next cohort starts in January of next year. Mr. Speaker, through you, if you allow me, I could pass on the registration forms. Mr. Speaker, in the area, the realms of sustainable development, this government has been doing so much. When we think of the international airport and the direct and attendant benefits that we will gain from the international airport, and the investment in tourism even before American Airlines saw this airport built in Dominica, they believed in us. To the extent that come December 8th, they will commence a weekly flight. I've been so advised that may actually increase to 3 flights per week, Mr. Speaker. So while my colleagues on this side have their eyes closed, the world is watching Dominica, and they are proud of the work and the good governance of this side, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're in a new age, an age of innovation. But instead, what we hear is the Senator Maslin, who I sometimes liken to the Winston Churchill from Penville because of his frequent usage of adages. And in that case, Mr. Speaker, you would hear him say, for example, that he would say, Mr. Speaker, to the effect that we have enough roads. That's not his exact words, Mr. Speaker. That's what I deduced, that we have enough roads. Boy, Mr. Speaker, the people from Vickers and Penville and Tebow and so on, they're lucky to have Roosevelt Skerritt as their parliamentary representative. Because he's now focused, they are blessed, Mr. Speaker. Because while the Prime Minister is engaged in the Ministry of Public Works on finding a new bridge to one of the access points to his constituency on one side, and on the other side in Tebow Hill, he is exploring ways through the investigations of our technical professionals who were attacked previously. They are currently engaged to look at ways where the road could be improved, Mr. Speaker, to allow for improved service delivery. From a site visit, I'm understanding, Mr. Speaker, that the 40-foot trailers and even 20-footers can't come up or have challenges. But if we follow your advice, Mr. Speaker, if we follow his advice, we won't build more roads. Unless he's trying to suggest that the investment in our road sector, which we know is a lot, is satisfactory. Mr. Speaker, generally, people plan expenditure. And we do that most times based on projected revenue. We do it in our homes, in our lives, in our personal and professional capacities, Mr. Speaker. We budget. Some of us are even lucky enough to have the opportunity to have contingency to address shortfalls and the effect of unforeseen circumstances and variables. In this case, the government doesn't have that luxury of contingency. Notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, by way of constitutional order and the Finance Administration Act, Mr. Speaker, we have the opportunity for supplementary appropriation. So this is certainly something that is built in our regulations. It's not something that's wild and baseless, something that we are creating to hide anything, Mr. Speaker. Our forefathers, they envisioned it. And Mr. Speaker, what does the other side suggest to a family who has one ham for Christmas or half a ham for Christmas? And it's been consumed, Mr. Speaker, by December 29th. And the children are staring their parents directly and squarely in the eyes, and they're looking for the next meal. Mr. Speaker, are they suggesting that they should leave their children hungry, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we know the challenges in these difficult times. We know of the uncertainties particularly associated to health. The numerous variants that we're seeing of COVID-19 strains, Mr. Speaker, the unpredictability and uncertainty that exists. We can well understand and appreciate these global challenges, the economic challenges that are associated with this. Mr. Speaker, while we plan and we budget, we certainly can't see everything, Mr. Speaker. We can't predict everything, Mr. Speaker. For the farmer who planted his or her seedlings last week in the open and would have seen incessant rain over the last 2 days, or may have bought a seedling tray ready to plant and they would have seen that destroyed over the rains over the last 2 days, Mr. Speaker. Unforeseen circumstances. And in that same way it happens to us in our private capacities, it also happens in government. So, Mr. Speaker, when I look at the source of revenue, I am seeing 3% loan, 7% grant, 90% local funding. Mr. Speaker, this is amazing, Mr. Speaker. This is prudent, Mr. Speaker. This is good governance. I'm hearing suggestions that we should find more grants. Well, from the cabinet I am fortunate to sit in, Mr. Speaker, I'm seeing a different trend. This find more grants thing that they're talking about, Mr. Speaker. Find more grants. In a time when there's so much uncertainty and the global economic powers that be are holding on to their dollars, Mr. Speaker, find more grants. Like you snap your fingers and you find more grants. I prefer subscribe to this side, Mr. Speaker, where in a sustainable and prudent way, Mr. Speaker, we are able to access revenue and pay for what we need. And this is the message that we should be teaching our children and the future generation. Mr. Speaker, I've gone through this line by line, and I don't see a bad spend. Mr. Speaker, what I see instead would be major investments, and major investments in the productive sectors. Mr. Speaker, I see structured stimulation. There's talk of stimulation over and over and over, but what I think they're suggesting, the only stimulation...
Six more minutes.
The only stimulation that they know, Mr. Speaker, is give out money. Give out money. But this is structured. $275 million, Mr. Speaker, of structured stimulation to the productive sector. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing here is increasing per capita income and boosting employment. And it was admitted by Senator Maslin that there is construction. Mr. Speaker, we need to take time and reflect, be more nationalistic in our approach to thinking and development. Mr. Speaker, let's humbly put aside our nuances, our differences, the innuendos, set aside the untruths. We have a country to build, Mr. Speaker. We have a nation to protect and to preserve, Mr. Speaker. We need all hands on deck. Let us work together, Mr. Speaker, in harmony. Let us not destroy the very sectors, the CBI and other productive sectors, by going on Google and TikTok and Facebook and printing flyers and waving it with pride in the parliament, Mr. Speaker, to destroy the very sustainable sectors that we have worked hard to maintain, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let us focus on stability and safety. Let us all foster and promote the vaccination drive so that we can get closer to a point, a period where we will have less shocks, Mr. Speaker, and more stability. Mr. Speaker, I know and I trust that we can do it. All we need to do is work together, be honest with ourselves, and develop this country. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I wish to reaffirm my commitment for the supplementary appropriations. I thank you.
As a member of parliament, I have access to this. And as for the Dominicans, I think the concern that we really have is that when members of the parliament making their on the opposition side making their presentation, the live streaming from the government is get cut off from the Prime Minister's speech. If we are going on the GIS, if you're streaming live on GIS, nobody will get cut off. And that is happening too frequent. I hope that the broadcast committee can take this off. Seeing that we're talking about the communication system and the problem that we have in there. Technical difficulties, yes, thank you very much. And I think what is we're hearing as well, sometimes when the members of the opposition speak in, the volume drops. Yes, and that is a serious concern. I just want us to address that because everybody needs to hear. If it was happening to members of the opposition on the other side, I would have a concern about it. I think we are members of parliament and should be given the opportunity to be heard. And I just wanted to make that point. Mr. Speaker,
before you continue, we have been having some technical challenge in regards to the audio from since morning. We are not sure if something was stripped earlier. So I'm asking you in this honorable house to bear with us and also the general public. In regards to what you mentioned, I'm not sure. So I will not comment on it. But what I will say is there is no deliberate action by the honorable house to curtail your broadcast.
And that's why
and I assume right now that you have been broadcast. You know, so let's proceed.
Thank you. Since I have the grandpa of the house on my phone, I'm good. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to recognize your apology for what transpired previously because I got some calls about what transpired and how going forward. We should be,
hold on. On a point of correction, I did not apologize. What I said is the standing orders were correct, but the process, you understand?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, the Senator, I think I have a lot of respect for the Senator who just spoke because I know the Senator for a very long time from his high school days. His father and I worked together and he would be there, so I know him, I have a lot of respect for him. But tonight I was somewhat disappointed with his presentation in terms of his line. I was expecting the Senator to come there and speak on the issues before the House, but he took a line of attacking the members on the opposition side. And I see it as a turn-off, and I hope going forward we could enhance, as I said earlier on, enhance the debate in the House. Mr. Speaker, unforeseen, he made a point about unforeseen, and I want us to look at the supplementary appropriation. Supplementary appropriation are unforeseen expenses that were not budgeted for. Well, Mr. Speaker, I have some concerns with some of the unforeseen, so I need some clarifications. And I heard the Minister of Education this morning, Mr. Speaker. The budgetary estimates for the year under review, 2020 to 2021, was $1.03 billion. The supplementary appropriation for this said year is $275.2 million. That is 27% of the budgetary estimates. But the only unforeseen activity, Mr. Speaker, that really transpired during that year was COVID. The COVID pandemic affected the provision of service. And we all experienced that people couldn't go to work, they were at their home. So production was very low during the year, and we all can understand that, Mr. Speaker. So unforeseen for me was because of COVID, we had some challenges. Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to understand how paying $8.7 million under the subheading of the Ministry of Education to meet, and I quote, to meet outstanding payments of tuition and housing and other related expenses to Dominican students pursuing higher education at various universities. Unforeseen. The government of Dominica, Madam Speaker, was in agreement with our students before they left, they signed a contract that the government would pay. When the government went into the contractual agreement to meet the expenses of these students in a timely manner, these students are attending this education institution because the government of Dominica agreed to pay unforeseen. We are owing for years. A semester is about 3 months. And these students got commitment from the state, by the state, letter of commitment, that they would pay and we're hearing that we're paying $8.7 million during that period as unforeseen. Mr. Speaker, instead of the school have to threaten to throw out our students on the street, that is when the government shamefully agreed to their financial obligation on behalf of our students. This cannot be unforeseen expenses, but calculated malice by this administration, Mr. Speaker. Yes, malice. I hope that these students are taking notes, Mr. Speaker, because we want our students to go there. And I heard having a university graduate in every home, and I applaud that concept. I applaud that concept. But when the students are all there, we should ensure that we give them the financial support that they need for them to focus on attaining the degree. And that is what I'd like to see. Today, most of these colleges and universities are refusing letters of commitment from the government for new students because the government has failed to pay. Yes, I am sure. I can give you how many universities that have told students that they will not be accepting letters of commitment from the state until they pay. For new, I can call the university's name. I will not do that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like it to be paid on time. Mr. Speaker, under the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy, Mr. Speaker, I will say, aka the Ministry of Kwedi, because under this ministry, I am seeing we owing almost every utility company. Credit, then, Ministry of Credit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're not trying, okay, my translator. This is, how can this be unforeseen when every hard-working Dominican has to meet their monthly expenses with the utility companies or else face disconnection? That cannot be unforeseen because we're owing the state $4.6 million to facilitate outstanding payment to cable and wireless. Unforeseen? How can this be unforeseen? We're in a contractual agreement with cable and wireless. We should be paying them on time. This cannot be unforeseen. Mr. Speaker, telecommunication service providers has to disconnect internet services at key government institutions to force the government to pay. Am I lying on this one again? Am I lying again? Mr. Grandpa of the house. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, customs, police stations, government provided living quarters for senior public officers and others. Internet service was stopped, cut in this area. Am I lying again? This is not unforeseen. We have to do what is right to ensure. I heard the senator spoke earlier on about our public officers. How we support our public officers. I didn't hear you speak as the Minister of Digital Economy too. Ensure that our public officers, senior public officers, are comfortable at work and can do the job. Is the minister there? Or is missing? He's out. He's the Minister of Digital Economy. Mr. Speaker, $35,134 was spent for the purchase of office equipment and software, as well as COVID-19 related supplies. Mr. Speaker, I have to mention this because that is for the audit department. I want to take the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank the audit department for doing, you see, they say we're not congratulating or thanking public officers. the audit department. I would like to take the opportunity to commend the Director of Audit and her team for bringing the annual Directors of Audit report up to date. I would like to thank them for their competence and work ethics. This is critical as we continue to seek transparency and accountability of state finances. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it would be good to see the state could retrieve some of the funds. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about public officers' efficiencies and what they have done in the audit department to bring up to date 4 years of work of the former Director of Audit. Mr. Speaker, and that is, we have to look at this, and if you're looking at ensuring that funds are properly spent, well spent, and people get value for money, I want to commend the audit department once again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like an update, and I heard Senator John Finn mention it earlier on the 2021 population and housing census. Because the last time we had a final census report was 20 years ago. In 2021, the government released the preliminary report, and we are still awaiting the final report. Just after Hurricane Maria in 2017, one of the international agencies that was on island offered to undertake the census, and the government refused. I am sure we were told about it, that they needed to send information to help guide, support, giving support to people who got affected during Maria, and they were having some serious challenges. A population and housing census is a critical requirement to development plans and programs. By using updated and comprehensive and reliable data, an updated census provides the government, private sector, and international agencies with reliable data to assist in planning for and reaching targeted demographics. Mr. Speaker, this information is important. A census is important. We are hearing about, they did the mapping earlier on this year, money was spent for it. Where are we with the census? We cannot go 20 years without having a census that will help guide development, that will help guide policy development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the census is ongoing and the final report will be made available very soon. Mr. Speaker, money was also made available to the NAO office, and I want to pause there as well, Mr. Speaker. The National Authorizing Officer is representing the EU here, and under the BAM project. There were several projects that happened under the BAM, and I have concern with one, and I still have a lot of concern with it, Mr. Speaker, because the Salisbury Heights Road is one of the main arteries in terms of agricultural development in the country right now, on the West Coast. Because the people of
are you referring to any particular line item, or you
yes, line item, Mr. Speaker, is
because I see you going right down in BAM. I know.
No, right, it's the NAO. Money was made available. I was just talking about
what line? What line?
Right, that's the line item under the Ministry of Finance. Okay. Right. And I was just talking about. I made mention of BAM because money was made available, and I was talking about some of the concerns we have with this road. And I am sure the Senator Laville, who was the engineer on that project, will maybe give us some guidance. Now he's the minister, and I'm hoping that he knows the concern that I've raised about that road. Is
but again, Honorable John, Senator Laville is the minister And he's not an engineer in the parliament.
I said he was. I said he was.
So he's not, he is the minister right now. So, no, I'm just cautioning you. Yes. Remember, the rule says do not get involved in any personalities, not to go back. When he was an engineer, we'll put the house in dispute and debate. And also, I want to guide you in regards to the NAO, unless you have something positive, or if you have a concern, you can proceed. But let us not put people who can defend themselves.
I only mention about the concern I have with the rule. Okay. That is the only thing. I have nothing to say about the NAO. I say the NAO is representing the EU, and I just make specific reference to the BAM project.
Well, proceed.
Right. And that is a concern that I have. We continue to have with the road, and I am sure that the minister is aware, and I'm just putting on a public record that I raise that concern as well. It's not only for the Salisbury farmers, but it's for the St. Joseph and even farmers as far as Mahu. That's the only way they can go into the Kawum area. So I'm just raising that concern, a genuine concern, that we can address that, especially the hill completed Mapushwi to Hojan. That is a serious concern, and I'm very sure that the minister is very aware of that locality. Mr. Speaker, during the period under review, $5.9 million was spent to meet due diligence expenses under the Citizen by Investment program. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues raised it already, and I will not go into details. I just wanted to mention it because it's a genuine concern that we are spending all that money for due diligence, and we're still hearing reports of shady individuals having our passports. It's a reality. You can go online, you can search it, you can see the different names. In recent times, we have had people on Interpol most wanted with our passports. That's the reality. If we're doing due diligence, we should flag these people. There's some people who got their passport renewed after they were Interpol thing. Yeah. You know, the Minister of Trade, I'm still waiting for the boat that is in Alaska for my farmers in Salisbury. Yeah. The ministry, Mr. Speaker, before, Mr. Speaker, before agriculture was a stand-alone ministry because of its sustainable contribution to the national economy and the sustainable growth of our rural communities. That's what we knew. Agriculture. Everything else complemented agriculture. Mr. Speaker. But no, we see it in reverse. Everything else complemented agriculture. We all here can speak about our parents and grandparents who worked in the industry at different levels, maybe as farmers or different levels, and buying depots and whatnot. That contributed to the livelihood of the rural communities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the World Bank Farmers Program, $5.6 million. And I have to pause and raise some concerns. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a farmer. And his concern, Mr. Speaker, is that sometime last year they went into a control agreement with under the program for a particular amount of money and a particular amount of inputs, planting material, and tools. There were some delays in terms of getting maybe the second and the third tranche going. Recently they got it. But you had maybe an increase in the price of inputs. And now the farmers have to food fit. Some of the farmers have been serious concerned with that because the cost is passed on to them. Where they signed for something else maybe a year and a half ago. How can this be fair to our farmers? They meet their obligation, they signed, they prepared their land for planting material. I spoke to a young lady from Laplin who prepared for planting materials for citrus. And up to now, there's a problem. I was told there's a problem with citrus. But she was told to prepare the land and whatnot. And these farmers, For example, if they were told they would have gotten 20 bags of fertilizer under that program. Because the price of fertilizer increased, some of them are only receiving 10 or 15 a year and a half later. How our farmers going to be productive? How are we going to support under this program, Mr. Speaker? And that is a concern that we should have as a government to see how we can assist the farmers to get inputs on time and at cheaper costs. Right now, farmers are talking about coming together and import their own fertilizer because a half bag of fertilizer now is about $75 to $85. That's the price right now. And that is a concern. How are you going to be productive or your production going to be profitable when you have to buy in a half bag of fertilizer for about $80? That is the reality of it. And those of us from the farming community can identify with that. And that is why I am not speaking only for Salisbury, Kolibishi, and Monarch. I am speaking for farmers in general across the board. I am speaking on behalf of Mr. Austria as a farmer, the member for the Cottage Constituency. He's a farmer as well. You know, so I am speaking on behalf of the farmers. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, and that concern with the World Bank program, I am hoping it can be addressed to see how we can cushion the fall for the farmers in terms of availability of inputs and planting materials. That is another serious concern in 2021. Have we had a replanting program in terms of citrus replanting after the hurricane? Coconut replanting program. That is, we're almost 4 years, just over 4 years after Hurricane Maria. We should be seeing by next year after, having our coconuts, cocoa, and these things beginning to produce. If we had these programs to ensure that we get back into production. I've been trying to get, irrespective of what my good friend, the minister, said, some plans to replant my father's farm. He planted in 1971, which we're asking for replacement, not to plant new area. 7 hectares of land, we're asking for about 200 citrus plants. And we have been asking for 2 years now to replant. And that's what we're looking at. We don't have citrus. Grapefruit is like gold right now. Orange is like gold. We have to do better for our farmers and the rural community. And that is what we are asking on this side. That's why when we come here to the House to contribute, we contribute meaningfully. We make recommendations for the advancement of our country and everybody involved, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, no. Our road, Mr. Speaker, there can never be profitable increase in quantity and quality of produce by our farmers when they have to operate with limited working capital. The inconsistency
7 more minutes.
No problem, Mr. Speaker. Inconsistent availability and high price of inputs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another concern we have as well, there can never be the productivity, as I said, and quality with poor farm access routes. I mentioned about the Salisbury area, but let me put on place on this record as well. The Monarchet Farm Road, I know they were doing some service recently. I'm hoping that the people of Monarchet will get some relief to go on their farms. That's a serious concern for them. I also would like to place on record the Syndicate Farm Road. And there are some farmers and developers who are trying to raise some, they're raising some concerns about it and trying to they asked me to make a special appeal on their behalf for the Syndicate Farm Road and see how we can address it on their behalf, Mr. Speaker. Despite these challenges, our farmers continue to produce the limited resources that they have, but we still have a challenge, Mr. Speaker. And I go back to the Minister of Trade. That is little that we have. I am sure that the member for Wesley and the member from Laplin and these other areas will agree with me that they are produce wasting in these areas. planting and wasting, making juice on the ground, dashing, wasting in bells. Yes, I can tell you. I don't know. I don't know I have not been to Grandfather, but I can tell for the others. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So I am hoping that the Minister of Trade will break the iceberg in Alaska, and will get the 2 boats that he promised us a few years ago, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, $3.7 million was paid to meet commitments for the acquisition of properties for the Eastern Island Road work under the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, DVRP. Mr. Speaker, I welcome this project. Mr. Speaker. And I will, 10 years ago, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Norris Prevost in this House made that recommendation in this House, and I will, 10 years later, that is seen coming to reality, and I'm sure Honorable Norris Prevost was a previous member of the House for Rosa Central. Maybe he's happy that this project is underway. Mr. Speaker, I must raise concerns about the destruction of our rivers. We had some concerns about the rivers along that route, and the indiscriminate dumping of waste material on productive lands and other vulnerable areas. I was in the area on the weekend, so I can speak about that. I saw it myself. Waste materials, I don't know who from the ministry is supervising the work, but they're dumping waste material anywhere, and we can have a problem down the road. Clay traps water, and we know what can happen after. A lot of waste materials have been dumped indiscriminately on the West Coast, on the East Coast, and I hope, and I am sure that the member for Castle Bruce and also the member for the Kalingo territory, we will agree with me and see how maybe they can deal with that situation going forward, because we don't want that to happen and continue to have an issue down the road. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to add my voice to the concerns of the truckers. We recently raised concerns about being employed on this project. I know there was a meeting with the Minister and the Prime Minister, and I'm hoping that, and I'm here, but while they were at the meeting, Mr. Speaker, heavy equipment were being cleared on the port by one of the companies, Mr.
Three more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to raise that concern. I just want to tell you truck drivers that we are in support with them. We're not saying that we do not want foreigners to come here. We want them to get a piece of the pie. And that's what we're asking for our truckers. And I am sure there are some truckers' families in this house. Mr. Speaker, under the National Resilience Program, $4.1 million spent for the completion of housing units at Wesley, Salisbury, Portsmouth, Salisbury.
2 more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, no problem. Mr. Speaker, I just want to ask a question. Salisbury? Housing units in Salisbury? Can somebody show me where in Salisbury? I look everywhere in Salisbury, I ask questions, I call people in Salisbury. We paid money for completion of housing units in Salisbury. Mr. Speaker, I would like somebody to clear this for me as well. Mr. Speaker, quickly, under the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Community Development, $83,550 was spent by the Dominican Football Association on the rehabilitation of the Windsor Park Stadium. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Football Association for doing that. But I also have a concern, Mr. Speaker. 4 years after...
One more minute.
After Maria. Remember? One more. 4 more years after Maria, just winding up, Mr. Speaker, we have not done anything to repair the scoreboard and the 2 poles, light poles at the Windsor Park to host 37 international cricket games going to take place in the fiscal year, in the year from March 2021 to March 2022. And we have not bid for one, simply because we fail to repair the Windsor Park Stadium. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, thank you.
Yes, proceed.
Today was interesting. Time today, Mr. Speaker, whether the Dominican Labour Party didn't err in its selection of a candidate for the Granby by-election, because I listened to you today well, and I thought maybe you might have been a better strategic fit for the Granby constituency than the ambassador. But that's for another time. The Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Section 81. There shall be such provision as may be made by Parliament for the establishment of a contingencies fund and for authorizing the minister for the time being responsible for finance, if satisfied that there has arisen an urgent and unforeseen need for expenditure for which no other provision exists, to make advances from that fund to meet that need. Section 82, 80 subsection 2. Where any advance is made from the contingencies fund, a supplementary estimate shall, as soon as possible, be laid before the House, and when the supplementary estimate has been approved by the House, a supplementary appropriation bill shall be introduced as soon as possible in the House for replacing the amount so advanced. Operative phrases, Mr. Speaker: urgent and unforeseen need for expenditure. Make advances from the contingencies fund. Secure parliamentary approval as soon as possible. 5 months after the close of the financial year in which these appropriation events took place is not as soon as possible. Because in a number of cases, Mr. Speaker, of these items of expenditure, the administration knew as far back as the budget that there were overruns, there was unbudgeted spending, and that evidence is in the projections that were presented in the estimates for the financial year 2020-2021. And something occurred this morning, Mr. Speaker, which forces me to go back to this issue of credibility, the credibility of these supplementary appropriations. And I know you don't like it, but I'm going back 3 years, Mr. Speaker. Schedule of supplementary estimate, January 2018 to June 2018, head D27 X900 X94 35001, claims against government, $700,000. Explanation? Well, the funding organization is the government of Dominica, and the explanation is to meet payment to claimant Gilden Richards in the civil matter Dom HCV 336 of 2002. Gilden Richards versus Attorney General et al. It's now more than 3 years after the end of that 6-month period in which the government told this Honorable House it paid the claimant $700,000 in settlement of a judgment debt which the claimant has not received. And the question for this Parliament is, what happened to the $700,000? We heard explanations this morning that when a supplementary appropriation or supplementary estimate comes to the House in a schedule like this, the money has already been paid. There was no budgetary approval for these monies, but they were spent. And after the fact of the spending, we're here in Parliament giving approval for it. That's what the process is about. So I ask the question, what happened to the $700,000? that government claims it paid to Gildan Richards in excess of the sum provided by law for the period January to June of 2018? Was the amount issued under a different name for a different purpose? Was the check canceled? Was it recalled? Was there a stop payment? Where is the adjustment in the consolidated fund accounting? Where is the correction to the record of the Parliament? Mr. Speaker, I want to spend a little time setting the background against which these supplementary estimates emerge. We had a budget approved in this Parliament for the financial year 2020-2021. And the approval was for recurrent revenue of $695.4 million, capital revenue of $268.5 million, for total revenue of $963.9 million. The budget approved recurrent expenditure for that year, 2020-2021, at $606.5 million, capital expenditure at $427.2 million, total expenditure of $1,033.7 million. And that gave an overall deficit of $69.8 million. When we came to the end of the financial year, June 30th, 2021, and we had the budget exercise, the estimates presented projections of spending for the year 2020-2021, revenue expenditure projections. And the recurrent revenue that was budgeted at $695.4 million came in at $659.1 million. The capital revenue budgeted at $268.5 came in at $229.5 million. For total revenue projected for that year, supposed to have been $963.9, $888.6 million. The recurrent expenditure down significantly, $114.8 million to $497.7 million, and capital expenditure of $431.7. That's what the estimates told us at the end of last year. So the total expenditure projected for the year, $923.4 million, an overall deficit of $34.8 million. Let me note, Mr. Speaker, that in these revenues budgeted, the CBI was contributing $309.6 million in the budget. The projection moved that CBI revenue contribution down to $296.6 million. However, in the budget statement, we heard from the Prime Minister that the CBI revenues were in the region of $391.1 million. It keeps moving all the time. So we now come against that background to the supplementary estimates of $275.2 million, which is 30% of the total expenditure for the year projected at $923.4 million. We are told that this unbudgeted spending of $275.2 million was financed by grants of $18.5 million, local sources, which means, in our language, the CBI, $248.5 million, and loans, $8.2 million. And the breakdown has been given to you. The grants are 7%, the loans are 3%, the local sources, CBI, 90% of the funding for the unbudgeted spending. Mr. Speaker, we have reason to question the credibility of these numbers that are given to us for citizenship by investment. Let me tell you why. The year 2019-2020, we sold citizenships to 8,525 people.
We what?
8,525 people,
What you said?
right?
Sold?
Sold citizenships to
No, no.
8,525
No,
people.
it's erroneous. You cannot say we sell citizenship.
What did we do?
What we
We
have,
exchanged citizenship for money. We exchanged 8,525 citizenships.
so I'm asking you so you can continue your deliberation properly. Withdraw the statement saying we sold citizenship. No country sells citizenship. No country. Most countries or all countries have a program, but you cannot sell citizenship. Because
Mr. Speaker, let's stop splitting hairs.
no,
and
we're
being
not.
technical.
Well, if we are splitting hairs, just withdraw the statement because I'm telling
What
you,
statement?
it is sending
It
the
is,
wrong
it is
signal
known
about
the
your
world
country.
over, it is accepted the world over.
So do you say
that
America
countries like
sells?
ours sell passports
Do we
and sell
say?
citizenship?
Do we say that America sells citizenship?
Mr.
So
Mr.
no.
Speaker,
So I'm telling you
Mr.
that
Speaker,
I would ask
the
you.
term,
No.
there's a term called in international affairs, the sale of citizenship. You want to remove it from this parliament?
No, I'm not. I'm telling you.
So what
it
are you
is sending
saying?
the wrong signal.
What is wrong with
No
sale of
country
citizenship?
sells citizenship.
But
no
Mr.
country-
Speaker, that is wrong. What you mean no country sells citizenship? We are selling citizenship.
No, we do not sell citizenship. You have a program.
All right, well,
you
okay,
invest,
leave it alone.
And because you invest,
We
you
exchanged-
become a citizen.
Mr. Speaker, we exchanged with 8,525 citizenships. We exchanged that for $182.4 million. Okay? 8,525 citizenships for 2019-2020 yielded us CBI revenues of 182.4 million. But in the following year,
So hold on, honorable opposition leader. You are saying we are CBI revenue. So that is citizenship by investment revenue. So why would you say we sell passport or we sell citizenship?
we have moved on from
Why?
that. you
No,
know.
you'd have to
Mr.
withdraw
Speaker,
it
Mr.
because
Speaker,
I'm-
Mr.
you
Speaker,
see,
we have moved on from that. Please. Please.
Hold on. No, we have not moved on. I'm telling you to withdraw it because you have it on the record that we sell citizenship. And
People of
no,
Dominica,
because we are not. We are
people
not.
of Dominica,
No.
I address you right now.
Honorable Linton, we
at
are
this
not on
point
a
in
platform
time-
where you can say anything. This is going in the Hansard, in the records. We do not sell citizenship. Nowhere in the world.
Mr. Speaker, you do not view it as selling citizenship. You do not have the right to dictate to me my interpretation of what is all around the world.
No, but you did not
and
say you
refer to what
interpret
the sale
it
of
as. You
citizenship.
did not say we interpret it. You interpret it as. You said that we sold citizenship.
But that's my interpretation. My interpretation is
But-
that we sold citizenship. We exchanged money for the citizenship of Dominica. We exchanged money for the citizenship of Dominica. We have done that since the 1990s.
Are you going to withdraw the statement?
I cannot withdraw a statement of truth and fact.
And what is the truth? So no, you're saying that it is the truth, but you're saying that it is so difficult, very difficult. to reason
Mr.
with.
Speaker, 8,525 citizens gave us revenues of 182.4 million in 2019-2020.
So if you want to say
in 2021,
hold on.
768 citizens.
Honorable Linton, if you want to say it like that, it is okay, but you must withdraw the first statement because it is incorrect. Because you are actually saying that it is a citizenship by investment program. You said that. But in the next line, you are saying we sold citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, let's just forget about that now.
I want to, but it is wrong.
We're moving on. We're moving on, and we're saying that.
Yes. Just withdraw the statement and move on.
No, Mr. Speaker, I am not going to come to this honorable house, having lived in Dominica since the early 1990s when we started selling citizenship, for you to tell me in 2021 that I must withdraw a statement of the parliament, say, but this is the house in which it was passed. In this honorable house, we passed a bill to sell citizenship.
Honorable Linton,
Honorable
Linton, I'm going to be the bigger man and make you continue your debate. Least you say that I'm trying to block you. But a big man would understand and try to learn from different point of views. I am saying that it is incorrect anywhere in the world, because that is what we were trying to do this morning by putting our country in disrepute and say we are selling passport in a corner of a road. As the leader of the opposition or the prime minister, we have a responsibility. But if you want to proceed and leave it as is, I am going to be the bigger person, even if I'm the chair, and make you proceed. No, that is not true. You presented, I never interjected. So if you wish to proceed without withdrawing that matter, which is completely incorrect, I will allow you to proceed on the wrong path.
Mr. Speaker, I just to go over what I was saying a while ago, that for...
Honorable Linton, you can proceed.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Because you want to go on the wrong path of something which is completely incorrect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But again...
The records show...
Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. The records show that we handed citizenship to 8,525 persons in 2019-2020 and received revenues of 182.4 million. In the following year, 2020-2021, we handed citizenships to 768 people. The numbers are down 91%. We gave citizenship to 7,757 less persons in 2020-2021 than we gave in 2019-2020. But where in 2021 we had $182.4 million in revenue from 8,525 citizens, we are showing $296.6 million of revenue from 768 citizens. So the citizenship numbers are down by 91%. The citizenship dollars are up by 63%. That is why we ask questions. So you on the other side, the bright bulbs in the room, the degreed people who know better than everybody else, must allow us to understand in this parliament and to make sense of these things. Now, let's go to the capital spending budget, the PSIP, for 2020-2021. The budget was $427.2 million, and that was spread over 18 areas of public interest. 18 ministries of government, different areas of concern, where monies were budgeted, 18 of them. And of those 18, when we came back to look at the projections, last year's budget, we found 6 of the items where the spending, the capital spending, was above the budget, and 12 of the items where the capital spending was below the budget. The amount below the budget across 12 items was $85.8 million, and the above budget spending was $106.8 million. Then we came to this parliament and the schedule of supplementary appropriations which we have received, which tells us that the unbudgeted spending overall was $275.8 million. Let me make the observation that I don't see the tourism minister left. I was drawn to her concerns for my well-being and progress, and what appears to be an obsession with my trials and tribulations. So I wanted to ask her about the capital spending on the tourism budget, because I noticed that from $427 million, the Ministry of Tourism, International Transport, and Maritime Initiatives received $6.4 million. You would know, Mr. Speaker, that that's about 1.5% of the total public sector investment project budget. So a whole minister and a whole ministry, 1.5% of the capital budget, and from that, the ministry is only able to spend 19% of the 1.5%. And then, this ministry doesn't even figure on the supplementary appropriations. Pick up this bill, you look inside here for supplementary appropriations. Maybe the tourism ministry came for more money than they had budgeted for because they had things to do. Not a word. So 1.5% of the capital budget, only 19% of 1.5% spent, and 19% rate of implementation, project implementation in the Ministry of Tourism. If she spends less time cursing the United Workers' Party and focusing on a 20-year demand forecast for air passenger travel that will justify the development of an international airport at this time, she may serve the Dominica Labour Party better. She may serve the country of Dominica better. And we will the Minister of Tourism, International Transport, yes, and Maritime Initiatives. The Honorable Minister. Because when we talk all about United Workers' Party and performance and so on, and there was a reference to us this morning, the speaker said nothing about it. They referred to us as a pack of wolves. The speaker smiled. He said nothing. A pack of wolves. That's okay, because maybe that's how he sees us as well. Is that how he sees us, Mr. Speaker? A pack of wolves?
Do not get the speaker involved in the debate.
Or you just observe as you get involved. Just observe you as you get involved. Okay.
Here you see, I yield to you earlier, even if you were wrong.
This administration met air passenger arrivals at 74,000 in 1999. 74,000. That was an increase of 30% from the 57,000 that was registered in 1994. And this administration was only able to manage
6 more minutes.
72,000 air passenger arrivals per year for 20 years. 72 air passenger arrivals per year for 20 years. And now we hear the big boast. American Airlines is coming to Dominica. Great. 70 people will arrive on the flight on the 8th of December. With all due respect, the E-25 jet that American Airlines is going to use to fly the Miami-Dominica route has been in commercial production and therefore available to American Airlines since 2002. And you all want to tell me that since 2002, none of the enlightened stewards of dynamic Dominica could find it possible to attract American Airlines here using an aircraft that has been available to them for the last 19 years. 19 years. 19 years. So this is about So you know, it would have been good, Mr. Speaker, had we seen some extra spending on the tourism ministry, the Tourism, International Transport and Maritime Initiatives Ministry, to get some of that real work that needs to be done in tourism done. Let's get back to the capital spending that was above budget. Because we mentioned just now that $427.2 million, and then we saw 6 areas in which the spending was above budget. You had the Housing and Urban Renewal Ministry, $29.7 million above budget, as far as the projections go, and then health, $60.5 million, and sports and culture, $7 million. But then, we had a correction to those numbers in these supplementary appropriations, which tell us that the additional in the housing and urban renewal was $79.2 million. The addition in the health ministry was $76.9 million, and sports and culture, $17.4 million. These unbudgeted spending have much to do with the government and its arrangements with Montreal Management Company. 4 projects, Mr. Speaker. The modern resilient housing, the modern resilient health centers, the modern resilient community centers, and the Margaret Hospital. Budgeted 2020-2021 at $77.3 million, and then the projections came back at $190.5 million. So, where MMC is dealing with health, with projects for the health ministry, the resilient housing, and the Margaret Hospital, you had the budget of $20.4 million, $15 million for the Margaret Hospital, and $5.4 million for the resilient health centers. 2020-2021. That financial year, Mr. Speaker, began in July of 2020. The Margaret Hospital construction began in the early part of 2020. So since back in January, February of 2020, this administration knew that they were building, they had commenced construction of the Margaret Hospital. Therefore, any responsible administration would have to have a contract for the provision of the service of building the hospital. But they came to budget in the middle of the year, while construction is going on, to say that they needed $15 million. And the question is, what arrangement did you have at the time with the person who, or the entity that was given the no-bid contract to build the hospital? The year finishes, Mr. Speaker, and a new amount emerges for the Margaret Hospital. $37.9 million is needed for the hospital. That was budgeted at $15 million. So the new price of the hospital is $52.9 million. And the new price of the resilient health centers, no longer $5.4 million, it is now $32.4 million, a difference of $27 million on the budget. The modern resilient housing budgeted at $56.9 million, revised figure, $88.1 million, a difference of $31.2 million. And the modern resilient community centers, $17 million, we didn't see a figure in the budget. So this difference between what was budgeted and what it came out at projected is $113.2 million. 4 projects. 4 projects. Are we getting value for money?
You have 1 more minute, but because of the interaction we had, I will give you additional 2 minutes.
Additional 2 minutes? That's all, Mr. Speaker? Okay. The market, Mr. Speaker, with open competitive bidding, would have given Dominica these projects at a different price. If we had put it out to tender, we'd have gotten the modern resilient housing for $50 million, the modern resilient health centers for $14.4 million, the modern resilient community center for $10 million, and the Margaret Hospital for $34 million. So what that means is we have a difference between what the market would have given us and what we actually paid. $38 million on the modern resilient housing, $18 million on the health centers, 7.1 on the resilient community centers, and on the Margaret Hospital, $18.9 million, a total of $82.1 million above market. Because we didn't tender. Because we didn't tender. Because we didn't go through open competitive bidding. You know what $82 million would have done? $82 million is the second, would have been the second largest amount on the public sector investment program for that financial year. Mr. Speaker, give me a few minutes because this is important. We have to deal with this bizarre bundling at head D52, K600, K61, 3301 under the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy. The appropriation is for electricity charge, $5.4 million, funded by the government of Dominica to facilitate payments for electricity consumption for the months of July and November 2020. That's the government's electricity consumption. Then we have electricity consumption April and May 2021, government again, and then electricity consumption at Mercury Building, which we understand to be the building owned by Mercury Properties Limited in Mount Daniel, the official residence of the Prime Minister. Mount Daniel Underground Electrical Project and street lighting at Penville and Vacaz. And I heard a lot of talk today about what is in the open and what is hidden and what is not. Simple question. What is the cost in 2021 of the electricity consumption at the Mercury Building? Simple question. And I asked the question to the accounting officers because I didn't understand what this bundling was about. This 5.4 million, what this was all about. So I asked questions.
Time is up.
I didn't get answers, but I was able to have an idea that the electricity bill at that property where the state is paying $32,000 a month, and the state is providing for expenses at a similar amount, $32,000. It's in the budget. In addition to that, you have a $10,000 per month
your time
electricity
is up,
bill.
so wind up in 15 seconds.
Official residence of the Prime Minister. $10,000 per month on average. $10,000 a month on average.
Okay, time is up. Before, Honorable Blackmore, before you start the debate, Honorable Luge, and I'm directing this to the Honorable House and also to the Leader of Opposition because you are responsible for your side. While you were delivering your debate or your presentation, Honorable Luge in crosstalk is actually saying kickback. This is imputing improper motive. So, no, it is in the House. So hold on. Honorable Luge, hold on. No, we can have side talk. But you cannot be imputing improper motives in this honorable House, even if it's side talk. So, Honorable Luge, I'm going to let this one pass. No, I'm serious. I'm very serious. And maybe tomorrow we'll maybe have a discussion with the opposition leader in chambers. Because we need to be responsible. No, we'll discuss it before we leave. But we really need to put things in order. So I just wanted to say that because I'm not going to tolerate this. On one hand, you are saying that I'm picking on you, but every step of the way, you are imputing improper motive. And this has to stop. Okay. So let us continue. Honorable Blackmore.
Mr. Speaker, I yield for Honorable Councilman.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Clarification.
Let's proceed.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of clarification as it relates to Okay. Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of clarification as it relates to the suggestion that the average monthly consumption for the official residence of the Prime Minister is approximately $10,000. This is in fact incorrect. Additionally, the leader of the opposition also made mention of his attempts to obtain that figure by contacting the accounting officer. There is a proper administrative way to obtain that figure, which was not in fact followed. Notwithstanding, by way of clarification, the average monthly consumption is less than half of what is about half of what he's suggesting, equivalent to $5,310.24. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And additionally, Mr. Speaker, this figure, which I have just stated, is in effect similar to the consumption of similar government buildings.
Okay, let's proceed. Lady Daniel, parliamentary representative for the Collioure Constituency, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give my contribution to the supplementary estimates, and I will really confine my contribution to this aspect of the debate and not swerve from it. First thing I want to do, because I've heard here today a lot of explanation as to what supplementary appropriation bill is, one of the definitions I heard is unforeseen. But just for a little point of clarification for my own understanding, I think if we liken it to our house, we may plan, we have a salary, we may plan to buy things, and things come up. We may budget, and things come up, and we have to set things aside because other things take priority. And I think it also encompasses that aspect of the supplementary appropriation bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm here also as the PAL rep for the Collier constituency to provide my constituents specifically, and some Dominicans in general, with a sense or an understanding of what lies in this bill. Many I know are listening, and they tend to listen to specifics in relation to their community or to their constituency. Though sometimes there are details which addresses their concerns, yet every community, every constituency has been considered, even if you do not hear your constituency or your community spelled out. I will speak to the specifics as it relates to my constituency. But first of all, I need to commend this government in extending a helping hand to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in their vulnerable moments. It's for this reason that God selects earthly guardians that will do his will, specifically in time of need. We are always happy when other countries come to our aid in our time of need. It is with this same joy of receiving that we give. Mr. Speaker, in spite of the fact that relentless efforts are made to blacklist the CBI program, we continue to see progress, and this is not by accident. Our due diligence, as we see a cost for the due diligence, is the beacon of our success. We always seek to better the product, and that is why we always have to come up with new monies to help in bettering that product. It's not by accident we are ranked for 5 years counting as the top country in that situation, Mr. Speaker. And 5 years running. And so we look to Isaiah 54, verses 15 to 17. I'm not going to read it. For assurance in God's words. The last part of that, verse 17, says, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. And so we lean on that. Mr. Speaker, to my constituency, I'm just going to address things related to them. I am thankful for the 40% for student loans. And I here represent a few, but some of my constituents have benefited from that and have asked me to express their thanks for this massive relief, they call it. They are very appreciative of that, and one particular person can't help but giving thanks and praise to the government and to God for this. In the area of education, from the $8.5 million, students who have applied themselves in pursuing higher education. I here represent quite a number of students from my constituency, and their parents would not have been able to send them to school without the input of the government. And so we are thankful. For that is all we ask of them. We just want them to apply themselves. You can't just take people and send them to study. And I want to tell my constituents that this government prides itself in educating its people. And once you apply yourself with no fear or favor, you'll be entitled to receive that assistance from the government. I also say thank you for the over 70 plus people of my constituency who are beneficiaries in the cash transfer and other grants which is expressed in that supplementary appropriation bill. Mr. Speaker, a few people from my constituency, we see a lot of money, the unexpected spending, and we have to be really, I don't know what to call us, if we don't look at the spending, the extent of the spending in that COVID situation. Mr. Speaker, housing for people free of charge, no cost, 0%. Food, 0% from the people who suffer from COVID. We have to pay the electricity bills, the people are in air condition, and we provide that because it is this government's policy to take care of its own. Many people are saying that we should charge people, but when this government looks at some of the situations of these people, they haven't got a choice but to take care of the people. And so we are thankful. And this has been done. We have established COVID facilities. And I'm surprised at the amount that we have going into the supplementary. I thought the COVID facilities and all the external expenses related to it would cost the $275 million because we have been in that for a long time. Mr. Speaker, the comforting thing, as I said, a number of my people have found themselves at this COVID center. But the comforting thing for them is that they came on feeling better because they were vaccinated. And I urge my people to get vaxxed because this is your only saving grace. We now have a new variant. And from my understanding of variants, is that the people who are not vaccinated, if you get the COVID, it enters inside of you. That's just from my layman perspective. And it has no medication or nothing to hold on to. It might, I don't know if you have seen unisex advertisement, Mr. Speaker, where this little man is dancing inside of you. And when they spray him, he falls back. That's like the COVID. It comes, you are not vaccinated, it will do all, and it will mutate inside of you. And we may end up having our own variant. And so I urge all who can be vaccinated, there's this new variant, to be vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, I do not know if it's my understanding, but I want to thank the Prime Minister because I understood he has a new vaccination. I hear people say they are not taking this carried vaccination. I may be wrong. So if the Prime Minister has created this new vax, kudos to him. Mr. Speaker, we have been in this COVID environment for a long time. I'm really scared of COVID. It is not easy in these economic times. Countries on lockdown, businesses feeling the impact. So one can understand the economic strain. And Mr. Speaker, we should be happy with what we see in that supplementary estimates to mitigate against this thing. In spite of all this, lockdowns, businesses closing, the government has been providing for those affected at no cost, as I said already. Many have been clamoring. A lot of people are saying we should not be doing that. There should be a cost because it's really adding up. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just hope that Dominicans are listening, taking heed, and taking care of themselves because at the end of the day, you are responsible for your health. Mr. Speaker, it hurts. Sometimes you listen to the radio. When you hear business places closing down for 1 week, maybe because one person came in with the vaccine. That means loss of income for the business, loss of work for the COVID, loss of work for people. And this impact is not doing us very, very well at all. Closure for 1 week at a business means loss of income for the business and the workers. How long can businesses go through this process because of the irresponsible behavior of a few? Dominicans, please, please do not just go on Facebook and just take any kind of news that you see. Fake news is rife. Go to the WHO website, the CDC website, and get the facts for yourself, because this disease is deadly. The constituents of Coliho are thankful for the health center, as seen there. Very soon we will be opening, and I think that is one structure that has uplifted the environment. And I want to thank at this moment some people from the Coliho constituency and one person from Biosh, who we had a wall around this new environment and it wasn't plastered. And these people came together. We provided them with a little cement, but they came together, they gave up their time and of their talent. It took them 2 Saturdays to plaster the wall. Today, they were doing I don't know what you call it, where you put the thing around to plaster the top of it, the beam or something like that. They were doing that free of charge. And so I want to thank them very, very, very honestly. And I'd like to call their names, because just saying that, I would like to thank Henry John, Keegan George, Jack John, Emmanuel Defoe Jr., Mosiah John, Monson Rudet, Arthur Knight, Roy Shillingford, and Elvis Sabroach from Biosh, who came in and gave of their time and talent. I want to thank my secretary, Miss Celia Leblanc. It was her initiative. She went around and getting people and, talking to people to see what they could contribute to that project. And she did a very good job. Also want to thank Rose and Shillingford for her assistance. The district nurse, Nurse Daru, she not only assisted us, but she even provided snacks to those who did the job. And I have to commend Nurse Daru for her stance on the vaccination drive. She goes from house to house to seek out the children, to encourage people. And so we in the Coliho constituency, we are doing very well, revaccination. Mr. Speaker, I must express my entire thanks for the employment of my people, 86 of them in the constituency, under the NEP employment program. Mr. Speaker, we are speaking of 3 days a week for the half day. They have about 4 more days or 3 more days left in the week where they can get employment to augment the salary that they are getting. $600, over $10 an hour. And in life, Mr. Speaker, all of us can be teachers, all of us can be lawyers, all of us can be doctors. It takes all sorts of workers to make a community a productive, healthy community. And so, we shouldn't denigrate the job of anybody. I just advise and implore my people who work under the employment program, be the best that you can be in what you do, and God will do the rest. Always be appreciative. It's only when you show your best in something that you can move to higher heights. We were not all made to achieve the same skills and talents. Otherwise, the world would be skewed. So that is why in some countries, some people, while we are here now, some people are sleeping, some people are just waking up. It's so different in the world. And so I do not want anybody to put down, especially the NEP. It's not only in the beautification that they work. We have mentors in the schools. We have people who work in offices. You have a wide, according to your skill, we place you there. And so I think we should appreciate our people. Mr. Speaker, no one has been laid off from the NEP program. No one whatsoever, not from any government program. And I will say to the NEP people, no matter what people say to you, no one will seek you at the end of the month to tell you, look, $600. Sit down at your home, look, $600. So be thankful. Work diligently and honestly in everything. Be honest in what you do, and you will be amazed at the blessings that you receive. It would be remiss of me not to mention the Platmapia housing scheme. Though thankful, Mr. Speaker, the residents in that area look forward to the day when they will receive street lights, Mr. Speaker, and when they will see the completion of that project. They're still on stills. There are 10 people awaiting housing. Our case is dire too in that area. We were in the vulnerable area too for Erica and Maria. And we too, my people need that kind of assistance. In light of that, I want to thank the PS in the Ministry of Housing, because in spite of the fact that we are not getting everything, but we are getting something, and an ungrateful person is the worst person you can have. And so I want to say thanks. We were able to get about $232,000 to assist people in the renovation of their houses. But one of the things, we are slow in that process, I must admit, because, Mr. Speaker, when you are giving to people, you want to ensure that it goes towards what it's intended for. The idea of people just getting an invoice and taking, those days are gone. When the Ministry of Housing gives you money, and they come from the supplementary estimates especially, and they give you money, they want to ensure that it is done properly. So they have to send their technical people to observe the project, to see what the invoices say, whether that's what the people really need. And it's in light of that, that's how we are moving now with assistance in the housing program. So it's not bringing an invoice and getting the money. It's not that way at all, at all, at all. And so I urge my people to be patient, because when your neighbor's house is fixed, that means we are nearer to you. And we will do it one at a time, but we will do it anyway. You can trust us, because when we promise something, we deliver. And so, as we come to the end of the year, Christmas is dawning on us, I just advise people to spend wisely, to love your neighbor, look out for the vulnerable people. Do not give your money away to those who want to get it, just like this. Budget your money and ensure that whatever you do is done properly. I want, may the Almighty God continue guiding the government as we seek to bring comfort to all. May this government always seek God for direction, because without him, Mr. Speaker, we are nothing. We are nothing. Not in our strength, not in our mouth, nothing. Because he's the one who puts up and he's the one who puts down. And so we give thanks, we give praise. And on behalf of my people, as I said, you may not hear Coliho, Dubla, Bioche in the budget, but a lot of the benefits that are expressed in the supplementary appropriation bill, you all are benefactors of this thing. So give praise, give thanks, have a blessed Christmas, as I said, and may the good Lord continue to provide for you all. Keep safe in the COVID, follow the protocols, and that idea of, Dominica don't have much COVID, please, please, please restrain from that saying, because you know how near it is to you now. So may God bless the Commonwealth of Dominica, and I strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Esprit, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to refer to the report of the House of Assembly General Elections held on December 6, 2019, later down in my presentation. Mr. Speaker, I stand to give my unwavering support to this appropriation bill before us. And Mr. Speaker, I listened to the members of the opposition, and if you hear them debate, they will give the impression that the appropriation bill is solely for unforeseen. But I can say to the general public, what is presented here is the government's ability to raise more money than what was budgeted. And hence, we can spend these monies. Yes, there are areas where they are unforeseen, for instance, and they make heavy weather out of unforeseen circumstances. For instance, Mr. Speaker, under the House of Assembly, how would you know that the AC unit would have gone bad so you could budget for it? You would not know that. And these are the issues of a supplementary, and you hear the members of the opposition come and they speak, and I make reference now to Senator Sanford, who came here and misled the people. And one of the things she said is that people on the NEP get around $500, Mr. Speaker. You just heard the member for Collioure saying how expensive NEP payment is. Because in truth, people start to work from 7 and by 12 they finish work. And they work 3 days a week for 12 days a month and they get $600, Mr. Speaker. That is sometime, if you do a proper calculation, is maybe more than a teacher's or nurse salary, if they were to work for the entire month. And let me place on the public record for the people listening that the NEP stipend ranges from $600, Mr. Speaker, to as high as $3,500, Mr. Speaker. So we don't treat people on the NEP as if they're nothing. We treat people as to their level. There are people with master's degree under the NEP, and they draw master's degree salary, Mr. Speaker. And I had to place that on the record. And whilst I am on Senator Sanford, Mr. Speaker, it hurt my heart to hear a trained medical profession come to this honorable house. I'm Senator Sanford. Come to this honorable house and give the impression that there were nurses in the Salibia constituency who got COVID and there was a disaster in her own words, a health disaster. And I'm saying, but you are a trained nurse. What did you do? These are the people, here and about, 11 months ago, you came to them and asked them to vote for you. And now they're seeking health care, and you, a trained medical profession, you're not offering your services to them. And you want them to vote for you? And that, Mr. Speaker, is the representation of the opposition. They don't love or care for people. They only want power. And Mr. Speaker, that's the way the opposition operates. They come here, and Senator Laville said it properly. You listen to Senator Maslin, and he proclaimed to be the most intelligent person here. And that's how you'd all become. And they just come, the members of the opposition, UWP, just come and they speak. And if you don't pay attention to what they're saying, they slip in some untruth, they slip in some misrepresentation, and they speak of certain things like it's trivia, but their intention is to mislead the people. So, for instance, Maslin has a habit of speaking of things he don't know about. Senator Maslin has a habit of referring to things he have no knowledge about. For instance, I heard him made a statement that the shadow is bigger than the object. Mr. Speaker, you are a science student, and you know that cannot be true. That cannot be true, because shadow is a product of light. Light wave don't bend. So when it reaches an object, the object will obscure the light wave. So the size of the shadow will depend on the intensity of the light and the angle from which the light is coming from. And Mr. Speaker, I couldn't let that pass, because somebody will say that's a simple thing. But these are the simple things they come here and try to use to mislead the people. You understand, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, before I go into the appropriation itself, let me deal with the member of Salisbury, Honorable Hector John, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I mean, let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, we will not use inappropriate parliamentary language, but we know the abilities of the member for Salisbury. So if I didn't know him all my life, I would think he was misleading people when he misunderstood what housing units are. But because of his limited capacity, I know he does not know what housing units are. So he came here and he said he called people to see what housing units. Mr. Speaker, I am to say to him that the housing unit is not necessarily a house from MMC. But see,
Hold on,
Mr. Speaker, I not heal it. I not heal it.
Okay. Hold on.
Member for Mr. Speaker, you see, Mr. Speaker, the member for Rosanov came in the house, quietly like a mouse, said nothing. As soon as you mention you're going to restore his salary, give him a bonus, he start back misbehaving. He start back misbehaving. And Mr. Speaker, you're very generous, because in truth and in fact, the member for Rosanov's salary was supposed to begin today. So you'd have gotten 29 and 32 days salary. But you're so generous, you gave me the entire month. And now he start back misbehaving. Back to the point with the member for... Back to the member of Salisbury, Mr. Speaker. A housing unit is not a unit necessarily constructed by sustainable housing development. A housing unit not necessarily a house constructed by MMC. No, I'm not on my foot. Come on. You understand, Mr.
Member
Speaker?
for Rosanov, I ask. Do you really need protection? Proceed.
So, Mr. Speaker, the truth is, a housing unit is not necessarily one of the units constructed by sustainable housing. Neither one of the units constructed by MMC. A housing unit is a housing unit. And in the Salisbury constituency after Hurricane Maria, we've gone to construct homes for people who have lost their homes. And we're constructing a home for John Baptist, for instance. That's just one out of 4. She consequently died. But we completed the house for the 2 children. One of the children, his friend, he knows the house, but he comes there trying to mislead the people and saying he's looking for the house. I'm not even sure what he's doing, because he speaks, he's not even sure what he's saying, so sometimes you're not sure. So, Mr. Speaker, the Dominican Labour Party has constructed homes in the Salisbury constituency, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I want to refer to 3 areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have Marigot constituency. Lennox Linton, 800, honorable leader of the opposition and member for the Marigot. Mr. Speaker, I do not have to say that because I'm reading the book itself, and the book doesn't make no mention to honorable nothing. So let's go. Marigot, Lennox Linton, 882 votes. UWP. Mr. Riviere, 229 votes. The UWP candidate won by 613 votes. But in the supplementary, you have heard mention of Marigot many times. And I deliberately making reference to that. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because the opposition like to come there and say, we do nothing for the opposition, or we do nothing for areas in opposition areas. And Mr. Speaker, you see the members of the opposition, and to use handbag word, you're a guausaf. You're a gua. The ungrateful, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, Rosanov, let me put my glasses for me to read Rosanov. Rosanov, I'll come to the votes, your votes there. Yes. Mr. Speaker, Rosanov, Daniel Lugue, 2,134 votes. Mr. Speaker, I see a name there. Joseph Isaac, I don't know that person. 1,638 votes. A difference of 496 votes. So it means the UWP won there comfortably. Mr. Speaker, under the appropriation, head D 34, house, renovation and sanitation, rose enough, $1,638,746 spent in the constituency of the Honorable Daniel Luge, and not one mention here to say thank you. Garçon zo egwa oui garçon.
What does egwa mean?
Ungrateful. You represent the people. See what? Garçon. And Mr. Speaker, that figure there, that $1 million there, based on the amount of votes he got, there's no way we could have done labor rights alone, you know. With that $1.6 million, there must have been UWPIs in that, you know. There must be. Mr. Speaker, the same election, Mr. Speaker, the same election book, Salisbury, and I make mention of them for the people to hear. Hector John, 866. Nichols Esprit, 534. The Victor, a UWP candidate. Salisbury mentioned there again. No thank you. And even when he knows what is done, he come there and give the impression like he don't know, try to give the impression like we just say money for Salisbury. The money is there. We spent it. And if you want, I can give you a walk. I can take a GA because you always have fixated on GA. If you want, I can give you a ride on the GA and bring you to the houses that we constructed in the constituency. You know? And Mr. Speaker, I don't know. There was once, Mr. Speaker, just like you, we sat on the opposition, and as if that's not the way we played politics. That's not the way we played politics. Look, I'm happy to have my teacher back in the house. We sat there, we spoke, we debate on matters, and we go outside and we laugh. Before your time, that's why. And you know, I mean, even the former Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Edison James, you know, a great debater, he would come there, he would speak, he give Ian a jab, and we go outside there, we laugh. Break time, if I am permitted to call it that, all of us would go upstairs there, Earl Williams, former member for Salisbury, we would laugh. Right now, you know, Mr. Speaker, the problem you all have is the three worst members are the ones that are elected, you know. That's what destroyed them, you know. Yeah, because if you look at the four senators, you know, I mean, just to please their leadership, you let them come with a little, but if you listen to them, you saw Masle today, he tried his best to be a good debater, just to please this seat. And even the next leader of the APP, Senator Sanford, she debates very well, yeah, but she was good, but she have to be mindful of them three fellas. And Mr. Speaker, the three elected members of the UWP.
It is unparliamentary to say them three fellas.
No, I corrected myself. I said the three elected members of the opposition. The three elected members. And I can name them Honorable Lennox Linton, Honorable Danny Luge, and my parliamentary representative, Honorable Hector John. These three. And Mr. Speaker, under the Mr. Speaker, continuing on the appropriations, we have a fee of over $5 million to meet additional payment of due diligence, Mr. Speaker, due diligence. Mr. Speaker, you know, if the opposition was intelligent, they would never mention that. Because in that appropriation, you see that mention of that $5 million there? That's the highlight of the performance of the Dominican Labour Party. You know what that means, Mr. Speaker? The CBI program is overperforming. So we have to spend more money to do diligence because more people interested in the program. That's what it means. And you hear them come there and they try to give the impression like it's something wrong. Nothing is wrong. That is over the budgeted amount because more people are interested in Dominica's CBI program because they trust Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit and his management of the affairs. And the trust of the people for the leadership of the Dominican Labour Party and for the Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit was demonstrated in Grand Bay. Man deposit, go again. And the opposition, so shameful, couldn't present a candidate or presented one in false pretense. But all you candidate, everybody knows you're a candidate. They'll come there and yes. And that's the...
Senator, on what section are you?
What?
You are talking about the Grand Bay
on CBI, Mr. Speaker. And I'm speaking to the trust and confidence that the people have in the Dominican Labour Party and the leadership of the Dominican Labour Party. And this CBI now is basically oversubscribed to the point that we have to provide additional $5-point-something million to meet the cost of due diligence.
Okay, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, it's getting late. I don't want to go too long, but I have seen also the continuation of the members of the opposition on one matter, the Prime Minister's residence. And 2 budgets ago, I spoke on that, and I'll repeat the same thing I said. The issue is not, and permit me to just say Roosevelt Skerrit in context of what I'm going to say. The issue is not Roosevelt Skerrit. The issue is, are you or do you have respect for the office of Prime Minister? And the next question is, if you will not be, but we can always suppose. If your party was in office, that's how you would like for your Prime Minister to be treated? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. I mean, seriously, Mr. Speaker, I mean, you purport to be leaders of the state. You lead in the country, and I can even go back to Senator Sanford and Masletu. You lead in the country, you purport to be leaders, and you are leaders, you are members of parliament. And you come here and you make reference to selling passport, selling citizens. You know better than that. It's your country, even if you're not in office. It's your country. Respect your country and respect the offices of the country. Every time, and I forgive you, I forgive you. You know why I forgive you? Because the official resident of the Prime Minister is in your constituency. So I forgive you on that grounds. But we need to, that is what we're teaching our children, to disrespect offices of the state. Come on. Every time is a building. Man, respect the offices of the state. So people can respect you. People are not foolish. When people see that's how you behave, they will never elevate you to the higher office because you have no respect for the same office that you seek. Learn to respect the offices of the state. No, learn to respect the offices of the state. The problem is, Mr. Speaker, if I get offers, it's because I'm valuable. People don't go to Goldstone buy nothing, they buy expensive gold units. The difference is you all are not up for offer because you have no value for the thing. And you all, and see that, Mr. Speaker, I sit in here and I hear a member talking about GA. In 2021, we're talking about GA? A government minister? So who's the government? Who's the government? Messengers going on me Vic and you come in here and speak about a minister of a GA? That's what them man's here for we. Mr. Speaker, them Jamaicans used to, no, hold on.
Interpret.
The Jamaicans would say they red eye. And we like to say, in Salisbury, we say they Z4. And generally that means them fellas very envious. Very envious and jealous. If I'm allowed to say that in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Because you listen to them, you listen to the members of the opposition and...
You can, but do not get involved in personalities.
No.
Yes.
Generally. And you listen to...
I have asked him, I have asked him, that is why when members are given leeway, I must allow other members to give leeway.
But, Mr. Speaker,
that's why I asked him, where are you going with this?
I'm on the Prime Minister's resident.
He said he was looking at the credibility of the government. So proceed. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I have not much to say again, but to say that we on this side, we are satisfied with the work that we have done in all aspects of governance in this country, in all aspects. I heard somebody spoke of, if your level member for Roseau is My Boy's Kitchen, well, stay there. Stay there. But we debating matters of the state, and we debating how well we're doing in the CBI, and we debating in times of COVID that the government is able to raise $250 million above the budgeted amount. That speaks to the ability of the government and the respect that the government has. And if we were to take, for instance, COVID, Mr. Speaker, and we compare any other country to Dominica with 5,000 plus reported cases of COVID and we have only 40 deaths, whereas everywhere else, 100, 200, 300, it speaks to our management of the COVID. And now that we're on COVID, Mr. Speaker, you know that the members of the opposition, all of them went, like Nicodemus in the dark of night, and took the vaccine. And none of them is publicly saying and encouraging people to take the vaccine. Because, you know why, Mr. Speaker? You know why? Because they want things to go haywire, hoping that they can come in office. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. You don't take the member for Salisbury, you don't take the vaccine. Member for Salisbury, did you take the vaccine?
What is your point of order? Who is he? Who is he?
So is that a lie?
So have you, if it is not true, have you encouraged people?
Oh, okay. I know what people to talk.
And you have encouraged. You.
Have you taken the vaccine, member for Salisbury? Member for Salisbury, have you taken the vaccine?
You see, hold on.
Member for Rosanov, have you taken the vaccine? Have you gone on a public drive to encourage people to
so do? Senator, you see, we are saying you are standing on a point of order and saying that he's saying something that's incorrect. That he's saying that you did not encourage anybody. I'm asking you, did you encourage anybody? And you are not responding.
He said that the members of the opposition, I answered the members of the opposition. We had press conferences. Several members of the opposition have called and encouraged the opposition. He said that never did it. And you are the speaker of the house. Has not stopped it.
Proceed.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, in closing,
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, in closing, I can go to bed happy that the lives of the people of Dominica are in saving with the Dominica Labour Party, because in trying times, the Dominican Labour Party outshines everybody else. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And then also members, some members are purporting to know the rules. But on 48, we are purporting to know the rules. But 48D, during a meeting of the House, a member shall maintain silence while another member is speaking, and shall not interrupt except in accordance with a standing order. So unless you stand up and say, according to standing order XYZ, you cannot be talking across the chamber. And we are purporting, we are saying we are senior members, and we know the rules. The member said that members on the opposition side did not publicly support a program. Then if this is right, then we proceed. If it is not right, you stand up on a point of order, say it is incorrect, and you say on XY date, you were in a press conference and you did support the program. I ask you, did you support the program? You cannot respond. So I'm going to ask, member, I'm on my feet. You said that you know the rules. When the chair is on his feet, no one should talk. Honorable Hector John, if you proceed, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to stop disturbing the House. Honorable Hector John, you see I'm taking so much patience, so much. No, it is the rules. So let's proceed. Let's proceed. Let's proceed. Let's proceed. Let's proceed. Let us proceed. Member, take the floor.
Mr. Speaker,
Yeah, proceed.
I rise to give my contribution to the supplementary appropriation and to give my fullest support for the expenditure for the items contained in this document. Mr. Speaker, as the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disabilities, which I have the honor to lead, is the main government agency with responsibility for the most vulnerable in society. This ministry is particularly committed to the well-being of our children, our young people, our women, our senior citizens, including our centenarians, and our persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, as you are well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected every country in this world, economically and socially, and the well-being of all citizens of every country has been affected, including here in Dominica. This government continues, this Labour Party government continues to seek innovative ways to provide for the welfare of all citizens of Dominica. And we are very fortunate that we have partnership that has been fostered by this government, and in particularly our Prime Minister, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit. He has developed these partnerships and he has nurtured them over the years. And thanks to them, we have been assisted in our time of need. Mr. Speaker, upon the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, two of these partners assisted my ministry with assistance. And these are the UNDP, the United Nations Development Fund, and the World Food Program. I want to say a special thank you to these two bodies for reaching out in time of need to help our people. The Government of Dominica Public Assistance Program benefited from the World Food Cash Transfer Program. Also, the people who were vulnerable, like the women farmers, the fishermen, the fish vendors, small craft producers and vendors, our elderlies, our person living with disabilities, and our families with foster care children. In an effort to provide assistance to these beneficiaries under the Public Assistance Program, short-term employment was given to 24 young individuals as enumerators, and they traversed the entire country and went to every community to undertake rapid registration of individuals who met the criteria to be potential beneficiaries. A massive public awareness program was also conducted, and applicants also were able to register via a virtual platform utilizing the government website. Mr. Speaker, in the supplementary appropriation before us today, the Ministry of Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disability spent $3,193,775.51, all grant assistance under the Government of Dominica World Food Cash Transfer Program and the Government of Dominica United Nations Development Program. Mr. Speaker, under our partnership with the World Food Program, a total of $2,983,725 was paid out to the most vulnerable who were registered and met the criteria to benefit under that program during September 2020 to March 2021. 1,976 beneficiaries from the Public Assistance Program at the Welfare Division were supported with 3 rounds of payments, totaling $675 each. An amount of EC $1,333,800 was paid out to PAP beneficiaries over these 3 rounds. These beneficiaries were 842 males and 1,134 females, ranging between the ages of 18 and 69. A total of 3,667 individuals living within the public assistance households who also benefited indirectly. Mr. Speaker, the non-PAP beneficiaries encompass other individuals who are not part of the government's public assistance program but met specific program criteria for inclusion, as mentioned before. A total of 1,245 individuals benefited under this component of the program with 3 rounds of payment of $450, totaling $1,350 per individual. A total of $1,680,750 was paid out to these non-PAP beneficiaries during 3 rounds. These beneficiaries comprised of 613 males and 637 females, ranging between the ages of 18 and 69. Under this component of the program, 3,449 additional individuals living within this household also benefited from this intervention. Mr. Speaker, the World Food Program did not only assist with this cash transfer program, but during the administration of this program, we were able to donate to every village council, 43 to be exact, electronic devices to help in payment. not just for the program, but for all additional payments that occurs within the council. 43 village council clerks were trained in the digitalized reconciliation of all payments under this program. Mr. Speaker, the government of Dominica has entered into an MOU with the World Food Program to assist in strengthening Dominica's social protection system in order to be able to respond to shocks experienced by our most vulnerable in times of disaster. The ministry is working with our partners to establish an information and database system for all our social protection programs in Dominica. This system will improve the quality of information collected for these social programs. Mr. Speaker, under the Bureau of Gender Affairs, projects implemented were directly in line with the division mission, which is to ensure that policies, plans, and programs are in place to achieve improvement in the status of men and women. Projects were conceptualized and project actions were implemented directly aligned with the national goals of building climate resilience, facilitating sustainable development, and the implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Goals Agenda and promoting gender equality. The enhancing capacities and consciousness of vulnerable communities, especially women and youth, to achieve climate resilient project valued at $77,410 was implemented from November 2020 to February 2021. This project was funded by the Government of Canada and facilitated by UNDP. Achievements of these projects included 138 women and youth were trained and sensitized on the CRRP plan and the 3 pillars of resilience, contributing to the CRRP target of 90% of the population being able to identify the pillars of resilience and at least one measure undertaken by the government. 83 extension service providers were trained in key components of the CRRP. A successful public awareness campaign through live Facebook discussion, road shows, and radio dialogues on women, youth, and their contributions to climate resilience was done. 20% of our youth, 5 women, of which 20% was youth, contracted through the project period to support with administrative and project duties and or technical support. Overall, 230 individuals directly benefit from training, capacity building, or employment through this project. Mr. Speaker, under the project, strengthening of the Bureau of Gender Affairs and support to women farmer group, valued at $32,076, funded by UN Women under the Engender project in response to COVID-19, met its main objectives, which will strengthen virtual support services for survivors of gender-based violence and to strengthen support mechanisms for survivors of gender-based violence, and to support women, smallholding farmers who were directly impacted by COVID-19 lockdown guidelines. Mr. Speaker, the opposition keeps saying that we did not give any support during COVID-19. I'm educating them. Mr. Speaker, this project had 2 components. Under the first component, there was strengthening of the Bureau of Gender Affairs, and on the second component, we had distribution of small grants for agriculture sector in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Direct outputs of this was agricultural equipment for women and men agricultural groups. This included a deep freezer for the Bells Farmer Group. We also procured an industrial grater and scale for cassava group on the east. And currently, a fish tracking device is being procured for the Stowe Fonseja Fisheries Group. Let me thank you, Dr. Daru. Mr. Speaker, gender equality and empowerment remains priority for the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Our men, our women, and our youth are considered in all our project development and implementation. Mr. Speaker, the empowerment of our young people has remained top priority to this Labour Party administration. This is evident in the policy decisions that have been taken over the years, which have directly benefited the youth. The focus on education of our young people of Dominica, from early childhood education all the way to tertiary education, has been tremendous. I can name a few. Significant improvement of the early childhood education program, the provision of uniform and textbooks for all students in Dominica, universal secondary education, transportation program, free tuition to attend the Dominica State College, electronic learning devices for students, scholarships and assistance to attend universities, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, the 40% debt relief on student loans to our graduates who come back to work and contribute to the development of our nature isle is well received by them and their families. They have benefited they are beneficiaries over the entire country, and it touches every constituency, including the St. Joseph constituency, and for that I am grateful. This has given our young professionals an ability to use their money otherwise. They can now build their home sooner than they thought they would be able to. And if they're under 40, they can still benefit from the 10,000 grant from my ministry. The $10,000 grant for the under 40 to build their house, first-time homeowners. First time you hearing about that, Senator? Additionally, government continues to spend millions on the behalf of our students studying at various universities worldwide. Over $8 million in the supplementary appropriation correspond to the payments of tuition, housing, and other fees on behalf of our young Dominicans. Mr. Speaker, some of us would only dream of having a university education if it wasn't for this Dominican Labour Party. And I say some of us, including me. Education has been a priority. How can the opposition talk against supplementary appropriation towards education? That I will never understand. Empowering our youth. This is what this Labour Party administration is about. Now, we have a vision of a graduate, a university graduate in every home. But Mr. Speaker, do you know what? We can talk about 2, 3, 4 in every home. Thanks to this Labour Party, I can boast of 3 university graduates at my home. And I came from humble beginnings. I would have only dreamed. Mr. Speaker, we have been battling with an upsurge of COVID-19 over the last couple months. As a government, our main concern has remained protecting lives and ensuring that no one dies. Our first death was heartbreaking, but this government has been proactive for it all. Mr. Speaker, we had to put in the biggest hospital system this country has ever seen, that we now call the COVID-19 care complex. Mr. Speaker, people don't understand the sleepless nights that the Prime Minister and my colleagues had putting the system together. For the first time, we had a unit with over 500. And I've always said that I spent my entire life at the Princess Margaret Hospital, now the Dominica Chinese Friendship Hospital. And at no time would they have more than 200 patients at a time. Do you know what it is to have 500 patients and no user fees? No user fees. So we had to we had to ensure that they had somewhere to put the patients, somewhere to put the nurses, somewhere to put the doctors, somewhere to put our friends from Cuba who came to help us. We had to ensure that they had food. We had to ensure that there was internet. We had to ensure that there was water. We had to ensure that there was an area with an office, an area with phones where patients could call with their complaints. The amount of money had to be spent to save Dominican lives. How can somebody be against money? How can somebody be against money spent to protect lives? That I will never understand. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the St. Joseph constituency, I would like to say thank you to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Housing. Over 90% of our houses were destroyed by Hurricane Maria. Over 90%. And government has been building houses. And the people of the St. Joseph constituency, the people of Bells, St. Joseph, Merola, you are benefiting from housing repairs. And for this, we are grateful. Thank you, Honorable Minister of Housing. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to live better. And that's what the Dominican Labour Party government is all about, improving lives. And I know we will not stop with this housing revolution until every Dominican has a roof over their head and are very comfortable. Mr. Speaker, today I sat here in Parliament and I couldn't believe the attack on money spent on the National Employment Program. Mr. Speaker, my first day in this Parliament, I listened to the member, the senator from Cassibus, Senator John Finn. She was concerned. She was very, very concerned about people losing their job under NEP. Mr. Speaker, nobody has lost their job under NEP, even in these challenging times. Nobody has lost their jobs. Nobody has lost their salary, even in these challenging times. How can you say that why you spend money on NEP when you are employing young people?
12 more minutes.
How do we say, why was all that money spent in NEP? That is employment of our young people. I know my constituency has benefited, and I am very happy that there is the employment program so my people can get an entry point. And many have graduated during the time that I've served as the parliamentary representative, and I'm also very grateful for that. Mr. Speaker, I would like to educate the senator from Cassibus, because I'm trying to figure out why would you say there's no youth skills training program? The Youth Skill Training Center in Cassibus is one of the most active centers in Dominica. Where have you been? Have you visited the young people while they're being trained? Have they told you what they've been doing? I invite you to join me at the center to see what our young people are doing. Computer skills, auto mechanics, auto body repairs, furniture, what's that, maintenance, building maintenance? Let's talk. Of course, they are certified. Over 179 young people graduate from the Youth Skills Program. And I don't even want to talk about adult education. But I want to make one recommendation before I end tonight. I am under the impression that my colleagues on the other side of the house do not understand what it means to be in Parliament. Because I don't understand some of the things that they say. And it is my friend. This Senator Sanford, sorry. This Senator Sanford. I don't understand why my friend would go on internet and print a picture and wave it in Parliament. It is so sad. It is extremely sad. And you know what's worse about it? Mr. Speaker, I had several calls during the break. And somebody said to me, I remember you and Annette working together. You need to sit with her and tell her that when she's in Parliament, the world is listening. And when you do these things, you try to destroy your own country. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. How can you destroy the same country that you want to lead? Mr. Speaker, adult education has some lovely programs. I would like to ask my colleague, Honorable Roberts, the member for Grand Fond, let's organize some parliamentary lessons for our friends. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Rule, yes. Proceed.
I rise to make a very brief contribution in support of the supplementary appropriation before this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, this appropriation bill being debated here today demonstrates that despite the effects of the ongoing pandemic and because of the prudent financial management of our Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, the work of this administration for the advancement of this country continues. Many of these critical interventions will only take us closer to the attainment of our dynamic Dominica. Now, Mr. Speaker, in debating the supplementary appropriation, we cannot look at this in isolation. We have to remember that this is in addition to a lot of the planned activities, projects that were done, projects that were completed by this Dominica Labour Party government during a time where we were hit by a pandemic. I believe that the actions and interventions detailed in the supplementary appropriation should be applauded. Now more so than ever, given the extenuating circumstances. I also believe that these interventions express boldly the love, the care, and the dedication of this Dominica Labour Party to the people of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, the intervention by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Renewal are both timely and strategic. Timely with respect to the care and attention paid to alleviating some housing issues across the length and breadth of Dominica. Proper, safe, and secure housing is integral to the attainment of climate resiliency. This is an extraordinary effort by this government to fulfill the promises made to our citizens. Mr. Speaker, I also made mention of these activities being strategic. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this was an excellent way to inject money into our local economy, especially at a period where COVID-19 had slowed down economic activity. Small contractors across the island had the opportunity to earn revenue. And Mr. Speaker, I need not say how wide-reaching the benefits of these economic stimulation were. Mr. Speaker, this totaled to millions of dollars which circulated in the Dominican economy. We also see money spent on the acquisition of lands in Wesley and Woodford Hill, which is another indication that by the grace of God, our international airport is coming. Never before have we seen such developments with respect to the international airports taking place. This further shows that the government's firm commitment to see our international airport come to fruition. And the construction of this airport will provide a multitude of employment opportunities for both young and old alike. Mr. Speaker, the far-reaching effects of the COVID-19 pandemic did not spare the country's revenue, as Dominica experienced sudden and sharp cuts to money generated by the state. Yet still, the NEP continued, ensuring that interns received a salary. Now, some may call it a stipend, but I can tell you, as a former intern under the National Employment Program, I consider that a salary, Mr. Speaker. To me, stipend is just a legal term. Mr. Speaker, this Dominica Labour Party government has always and will always act in the best interest of our people, especially in times of need. The Honorable Prime Minister could have said, no, the state is not making the level of money that it used to. So these interns, let them go first. No. But that's not what you do when you truly love and care for people. And our Prime Minister and this Dominican Labour Party has shown love and care for all Dominicans by this extraordinary commitment. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the expenditure related to COVID-19 under the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that because of the fluidity of the COVID-19 situation, you can plan all you want, but there will still be situations which will call for additional spending. This Dominican Labour Party government has continued to ensure that no effort is spared in the fight against COVID-19. This government continues to make the safety of the lives of the people its top priority. Above all, through the efforts and activities of this government, we have ensured that lives have been saved. Now, this is a much different picture than the one the opposition painted for our country over a year ago. Left up to them, their lack of care and their inability to do right by this country, our fate would most certainly be different. Mr. Speaker, had they declared publicly their support of the government's vaccination efforts from the onset, perhaps all the money that was expensed in the fight against COVID-19 may not be. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that the over $7.2 million spent during the 2020-2021 period was money most appropriately spent. Now, Mr. Speaker, while on the topic of vaccination, I also wish to take this opportunity to encourage all young people in particular to get vaccinated. And all the school children eligible to get vaccinated. And just to say that this is not the time for us to be letting our guard down, thinking that COVID-19 is not threatening. The threat of this virus still remains very real, especially now with the discovery of the new Omicron variant. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I once again wholeheartedly support the supplementary appropriation put before this honorable House. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be adjourned until Tuesday, 30th November at 10 a.m. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, 30th November 2021.
Mr. Speaker,